Would you like to join a perfectly ordinary, if engaging young man from Hamburg for a planned stay of 3 weeks on a mountain retreat that stretches into years of philosophical inquiry before the devastation of World War One? Hello, welcome to my channel. Another bibliophile reads. My name is Greg, and today I'd like to invite you to join one of my favorite kinds of reading experiences, a group read of one of the great novels of the 20th century, The Magic Mountain by Thomas Mann. Back in 2024, 6 booktubers formed a reading group to tackle Ulysses by James Joyce. There was Alan from Big Hard Books and Classics, Pat from Book Chat with Pat, Roy from Roy Reads Anything, Debs from Rainier Reads Stuff, Will Chambers, and me. We jokingly called ourselves the Ulysses Six. We spent June and July discussing the novel on my Discord server, and we wrapped things up with a series of discussion panels that are still available on my YouTube channel. Quite honestly, it was one of the best reading experiences I've ever had. That's the magic of a great reading group. They make difficult books more engaging, more enjoyable, and more rewarding. I certainly learned a thing or two about James Joyce and Ulysses. In 2025, the group got back together and read The Brothers Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoevsky. And now, in 2026, the Ulysses Six rides again, to borrow a phrase from an old Western, with one new addition. Aaron Facer will be joining us as a host as we read The Magic Mountain by Thomas Mann during November and December of 2026. You'll find a link to my Discord server in the description of this video. That's where our primary discussions will take place, and everyone is welcome to join us. I will be reading the John E. Woods translation, but that certainly isn't a requirement. There are several English translations available, and if you'd rather read the novel in German or any other language, you are absolutely welcome to. Read whatever translation you're most comfortable with. The Magic Mountain has a reputation for being difficult, and there's some truth to that. But it's also one of the most rewarding reading experiences I've ever had. I will be following a reading schedule that averages about 90 pages per week. Think of that as a guideline rather than a rigid schedule. Some readers move a little faster, others a little slower, and that's perfectly fine. The only thing I ask is that during the discussion, we avoid talking ahead of the current week's schedule so everyone can enjoy the discovery of the novel together. For several of the hosts, this will be a reread. It is certainly for me. I actually hosted a discussion of The Magic Mountain back in 2022. The first time I read it, I wasn't trying to understand every philosophical argument or every symbolic layer. My goal was simply to experience the novel and become familiar with it. And that worked remarkably well. I enjoyed it immensely, without feeling like I had to solve every mystery hidden in the text. People often say that The Magic Mountain gets richer every time you read it, because there's simply so much happening, both on the surface and beneath. So while this will be a reread for me, it can absolutely be a first read for you. Everyone is welcome. And don't be intimidated by the novel's reputation. A common mistake is to approach The Magic Mountain as a puzzle that must be solved. I think it's far more rewarding to think of it as spending time in the company of extraordinarily interesting people while Thomas Mann explores some of life's biggest questions. If you have any questions about the novel, about how the reading group works, you can contact me through my YouTube channel banner. You'll find links there to my Voxer account and my email. If that's all you need to hear and you're already planning to read The Magic Mountain with us, then head on over to Discord and join the conversation. If you're still on the fence or you'd like to know a little bit more about Thomas Mann and his novel, then stick around. The rest of this video will provide a brief introduction to both. A brief biography of Thomas Mann. Thomas Mann was one of the greatest novelists of the 20th century and one of Germany's most influential literary figures. His novels combine psychology, realism, philosophical inquiry, and social criticism while exploring the tensions between the art of ordinary life and reason and passion, health and illness, and ultimately the fate of European civilization. His first major novel, Buddenbrooks, was published in 1901. It tells the story of the gradual decline of a wealthy merchant family, and it brought him international recognition while he was still in his 20s. Over the next decades, he produced many of the great works, including Tono Kyuger, Death in Venice, and The Magic Mountain. In 1929, he was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature. Although Mann initially held conservative views during the First World War, by the 1920s, he'd become an outspoken defender of democracy. After Adolf Hitler and the Nazis came to power in 1933, Mann left Germany while on a lecture tour and never lived in his homeland again. The Nazi government eventually stripped him of his German citizenship. He first settled in Switzerland before immigrating to the United States. He taught and lectured at Princeton University before making his home in California, where he became part of a remarkable community of German immigrant writers and intellectuals. While living in America, Mann recorded radio broadcasts urging Germans to resist the Nazi regime. During these years, he also completed several major works: the 4-volume Joseph and His Brothers, Dr. Faustus, and The Holy Sinner. After the Second World War, political atmosphere of the early Cold War made Mann increasingly uncomfortable in the United States. In 1952, he returned to Switzerland, where he spent his final years of his life. Mann died in Zurich on August 12, 1955, at the age of 80. Mann's fiction forms a bridge between the great 19th century novelist writers like Tolstoy and Dostoevsky, and the modernism of James Joyce and Marcel Proust and Franz Kafka. His novels reward patient readers with a remarkable combination of character, philosophy, history, music, humor, and irony. The Magic Mountain is widely regarded as his masterpiece and one of the defining novels of European modernism. A brief history of The Magic Mountain. The Magic Mountain grew out of an unexpected experience in Thomas Mann's own life. In 1912, Mann visited his wife, Katja, who had been sent to a tuberculosis sanatorium in Davos, Switzerland. Although she ultimately recovered, Mann became fascinated by the strange, isolated world of the mountain clinic. Visitors often arrived expecting to stay only a few weeks, yet many patients remained for years of living according to an almost ritualized daily routine. Originally, Mann intended to write only a relatively short companion piece to Death in Venice. Then history intervened. The outbreak of the First World War interrupted his work, and the years that followed profoundly changed his view of European civilization. The novel expanded from a satire of a sanitarium life into one of the great intellectual novels of the 20th century. Published in 1924, The Magic Mountain quickly came to be recognized as one of the major achievements of modern literature. Looking back from the aftermath of the First World War, it explores the intellectual, political, and moral tensions that shaped Europe before the catastrophe of 1914. Readers have described it as many things: a coming-of-age novel, a philosophical novel, a portrait of a vanished Europe, and even a diagnosis of ideas that shaped the 20th century. Well, that's my introduction to Thomas Mann and the Magic Mountain. I hope I've whetted your appetite to give this remarkable novel a try, whether this will be your first trip up the mountain or your fifth. I'd love to have you join us on Discord for what I think will be a wonderful discussion through November and December. Thank you for watching, and as always, keep on reading.